I'm all for making these guys have successful long careers where they can enjoy highlight moments instead of just having them schlepping away on ridiculous, endless Herculean tasks for our pleasure. No, let's save them.
One of the toughest strongmen in history, right here. It's not a beauty contest. This is Strongman. I'm to be alive. If you can't do that, then on the way we go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Giants Live Strongman podcast. As you can tell, no guest this week, and that's because this is a special. So this is going to be all about all things Giants Live, all things world, because you guys have asked the questions, and so I'm going to ask them to these two legends here. So gents, first of all, co-founders of Giants Live, how did it come about? So many people were asking that.
Giants Live, it's gone through two phases, really.
Yeah.
It's a bit like BC and AD. There was, before Sadler and after Sadler. I'm setting him up because I know he's going to, and it's true. Giants Live started actually back in 2009, and for a few years I battled away. Daz was an athlete still, and I think there was a moment in a Polish event. Daz, and I remember well when I was trying to interview Daz and working camera, tripod, everything, and my everything kept flopping and falling over. The music was going mad in this stadium, and Daz cracked a funny like, mate, I'm going to retire soon. Do you want a partner? And I think I said something like, would you? I'm not going to do it one.
Well, then we sort of left here. That actually nothing would happen.
Kind of a joke, wasn't it?
And then obviously, Giants Live started, and the first one you did was it not in Madison Square Garden?
Well, it was Mohegan Sun. Yeah, no, it was followed on from Super Series, which was the natural progression from that. And actually, if the truth be known, there was a guy called Charles Garland and AEG, which is the biggest production company, event production company in the world, that kind of came on board. And truth, we did Mohegan Sun in 2009, and then it was a financial failure. It was a financial failure. It was a great show, looked great, and had all these big AEG lighting rigs and everything. Did you do that one in 2009?
I think I did one in 2006 and one in 2009, yeah.
Yeah. So that was
I did a Super Series one and a Giants Live one, I'm sure.
But we just had the financial crisis. They basically shit-canned every single sports tour, from volleyball to whatever. So after that, I was basically said, okay, here's the keys back. You now own 100%. We don't want anything to do with this. And that was when I had the logistics to deal with everything on my own. And I kind of bumbled through a few years. I had the contracts, and we managed to deliver. I managed to deliver 5 shows a year for 3 years before Daz came on board. And
I started. So that's like the first phase of it. And then I didn't go to World's Strongest Man in 2011. I got my invite, but I was ill. And so Colin had said, I believe it was you, had said, I'm going to take this guy. I won't mention the guy's name. I'm going to take this guy. And I said, well, I don't think he's the right guy to take, to be honest with you, mate. It's none of my business, but I would take this guy or this guy. So I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put on a show at my gym. Let's invite all the possibilities. One of them being Eddie Hall. It was his first sort of qualifier. He didn't do very well.
It's because there'd been no Britons that year.
There was no Britons, no. So I said, can we just put on a show? I'll put it on. Don't want anything out of it. It's in my gym car park. We'll invite all these guys. Everyone wanted a chance, and they were going to take a certain guy, and I sort of disagreed. So we put on this show. People like Rob Frampton, there was Jack McIntosh, Dave Warner, Eddie Hall.
Eddie Hall was there.
I tell you who else was there. Jay Hughes, some of the old names.
Mark Felix
wasn't. He'd already qualified.
Okay.
Yeah, so he'd qualified.
In a funny way, it was almost the Britons in a way.
Yeah, it was just. Well,
for those who hadn't qualified.
Anyway. Yeah, it was. It was the Britons who were out the top few, because the top few had already done Giants Lives and qualified with Colin. You see. So I put it on in my gym car park, advertised it, and I called it Clash of the Giants. And Lindsay, who works for us now, me and her sort of arranged it. And
even back then?
Lindsay worked for me back then. She managed my gym.
Okay.
So I said, come on, Lindsay, we'll put this on. So me and Lindsay organised it all. And what we said was, it's £5 to watch it, and we'll give it all to charity. So we just went around with a bucket, and that was what it was. Anyhow, about 500 people turned up to watch it in my gym car park. It was mental. So, and Rob Frampton won it. Eddie came, didn't do so well. He went. That was the first thing we saw of Eddie, which is amazing when you see what he's done now. But everyone's got to start somewhere, you know.
What year was that? 2012?
11.
2011. We did Europe's then in 2012.
Yeah.
That was the first kind of.
So then. It was either late 2010 or early 2011. Anyway, so it was for 2011's Worlds, the qualifier. Anyway, Rob Frampton won it. I remember just thinking, wow, like I haven't put a lot of effort into this. There's like 500 people, and at the time I was doing some coaching for Leeds Rhinos, just through one of the sponsors, and I was just doing like little strongman shows and stuff for them, just to give them like a different aspect of the training, just very light strongman stuff for the Carnegie and the Rhinos, because they trained at the same grounds in Leeds, where I lived. So then I started thinking, maybe we can do some of this. So I spoke to the guys at the Rhinos Arena, Carnegie place there, in Headingley, and they said, we don't usually rent it out, but we'll rent it out to you if you want. So they rented it out. So then I bought the trademark for Europe's Strongest Man. So I put it on. There was no one interested in sponsoring it, anything like that. It cost me far too much money I didn't really have, to be quite honest with you. And then Colin said, do you want to make it a Giants Live? So I was like, okay. So what I had to do was, because there's costs in filming, the sponsor sort of paid for the filming, if you like. So I thought, well, that's okay. So the sponsorship sort of paid for the fact it can be a Giants Live, and because at that time it cost more to film it than you were getting from the TV, to be quite honest with you. And now we've got things like social media. We had none of that really back then.
Do things change?
Yeah, but the social media aspect now is different. You've got to film everything, haven't you? You know what I mean? So I put it on, and literally we sold hardly any tickets, and we did it through the gym. We did a ticketing through the gym. And I was like, oh.
Well, the first year, Europe was so when did it become there was loads came in then?
No, well, at first there was hardly any tickets sold. So I was like, oh no, this is a nightmare. And we did the ticketing not through a ticketing office, through the gym. So literally my gym phone's just going all the time.
Big mistake.
People buy 2 tickets, then they want another one next to it, and they're cancelling this and all this sort of thing. So me and Lindsay were like pulling our hair out. Anyhow, we thought about cancelling it, and even you guys were saying, like Dave Warner and Colin were saying, mate, just pull it. I thought, no, I've committed to it, I'm going to go. And it was a lot of money, that spent on it.
Oh, it was, well, if it's a bit like, Wayne's World, build it and they will come.
That's it. And then last minute, literally, there was loads of walk-ups. We got about 5,000 people there. And then I knew it was starting. I knew the tables had turned a few days before, but I didn't want to let on to these guys. I wanted to sort of surprise them when people were coming. And we filled the full stand. It was quite euphoric, wasn't it? I thought we can do this.
It was a lovely day. It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
And so I sort of, if you like, I paid a sanction fee for Giants Live for a couple of years, and then after a couple of years,
we came together.
Yeah, we were just like, it seemed stupid not to do it together, because he wanted to do more shows.
We'd already fallen in love, with some.
Yeah,
and that was it. I got down on one knee.
Well, we both had plans wanting to do more shows, and I suppose I had the logistics there, and Colin had the name of Giants Live.
Jazz is very good at logistics, and there's no doubt about it.
You're not.
And I'm not at all. No, which is why, when I was partnering up with those guys, I really did I'd like the world's greatest logistics behind me. But it's interesting because why did that fail? I tell you why it fails. Big corporations fail at these things because they have not enough Indians and too many chiefs. And they're all drawing big fat cat salaries, but no one actually does anything.
Am I not right in saying they did Madison Square Gardens as a Giants Live? Or is that a super series?
Well, no, Madison Square. So we did. So I was partnering that as well. Myself, Odd Haugen, and Ulf Benson was the.
Was that a super series then? Was it?
That was just That was the last super series we did.
Oh right, okay.
And that was great. That was great. But we personally risk everything every time. There, I didn't risk. I just risked all the time. And I produced the whole series, as it were, and I had a shareholding in it. But Ulf and Odd Haugen, they were the ones who put the money up. And that was so it was a slightly different scenario. And for many reasons that folded. Not, it was a good product, I thought. Obviously I produced it. So, but it was quite nice having someone that kind of. Odd was kind of logistics, and Ulf was kind of the money, I guess you could say, in many ways. And it ticked along nicely, but it was time to take it to a bigger level. Once I tasted Madison Square Garden and we'd done Mohegan Sun, I just knew this could be a hit. Contrary to belief, I can sell a thing or two, and I flogged it. It was originally called Strongmania. That was the original title, but I flogged it into AEG, and they loved it. But then, because had we done that Mohegan Sun in 2009, like without the big corporation there, if I remember correctly, we ran it over by like $85,000 on the budget. But that 85,000, there was like probably about 120,000 in fat cat salaries, if I remember correctly. What do these people do? Where are these people? Well, that's what you do. If you're part of a big corporation, you have executive producers, you have blah blah blah. And yes, it can work if you have big scale money coming in and you can scale it out. It can work very well. But when you're trying to grow something small, it's very hard when
too many managers.
Too many managers, and that's and it's not quite as. This had to be grown slowly, and Strongman has grown slowly, but it's caught a wind undoubtedly.
We went from so we did a few years at Headingley, and then one year it rained for like 3 weeks, and I was setting everything up, and it's just rain, and then the day of the show, it was sunshine, and then it rained for like another 2 weeks. I remember thinking, we can't do this, because we were so lucky to get this show done, and we had, so much money sold in tickets, athletes flown over, and obviously when it'd been outdoors, the crowd are indoors in the stand, but the athletes are outdoors, and it would have been a nightmare to film it and everything like that. We were buying tents to put the cameras under, weren't we, and everything like that. So we decided, right, we'll go inside. So we went to Leeds First Direct Arena.
Down Argos buying the 40 quid tents.
Yeah. We went to Leeds First Direct Arena and said to them, and it was, obviously a lot more money, a lot bigger.
What an arena Leeds is.
And I was just like, right, let's do it. You were a bit unsure, weren't you?
Well, it's partly because I kind of had a little bit of education from big dogs in AG.
I remember we stood there and I said, come on, let's hire it. We're in there. It's quite a place when you stood in there.
Which is unbelievable, because normally you're the risk-averse one and Colin's happy to take a risk.
No, it's the other way around.
It's the other way around.
100%.
Yeah, I know. I take massive risks. People know me as a risk taker. I'm nothing compared to this guy.
Wow,
I'll tell you how the conversation went. I said, mate, I think we better think about this. And the reason why I was saying that is because the theory in indoor arenas is don't do it in the summer. People don't want to go indoors in the summer.
It was July.
And guess what he gave us? He went, there's only one date left, which was a massive lie.
It was like July, there's something
July
like
7th you can have. We were like, what? I was like, that's a terrible date to be indoors. And you were like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. I went, all right, then I'm in.
I said, I'll just do it on my own.
And he looked at me like with a smile. I said,
I'll just do it on my own. I knew what he'd say. And then we did.
This guy's a nightmare. Honestly, he'll bet the house every time. If you were a gambler,
we went to Doncaster Dome. We filled that up.
Yeah.
Did that for a couple of years. And then I thought, oh no. So then I started going around the different arenas. And to be fair, every time you've gone, I'm not sure about that when I'm at right.
Pretty much, yeah.
No, I think we should one too
Come
many.
on, mate, we don't want to. We're in bloody Yorkshire again. It's crazy. It's insane. Okay, all right.
And now, like this year, we've got. Obviously, we did Wembley a couple of years ago, but I mean, we're doing Royal Albert Hall now, which is still too close.
Can I just note, in the 3 years prior to Daz, I actually did Wembley as well. That was the second time we'd gone to Wembley.
We didn't sell any tickets.
The first time, this is how I managed to do it. I would do shows like the one in Poland, and I'd basically take X amount of cash off of some guy who would then locally fund it all with sponsors. And, it was more like a site sponsorship thing. And then they'd give you the money, you'd pass on money to the athletes and film it. And hopefully you'd have a $5 left for yourself, Either that or I'd fund it out of school teaching, because that's what I was still doing. Just another sick day over here, just not filming in Poland, No, I was
So hang on,
I was freelance. I always took those days off.
You had to wake up on time. To schools, you have to be there early.
For quite a few years when we first started, he was school teaching.
Yeah, still was
school teaching.
Still down. I just kept dropping down to a day a week, and then finally gave it up.
Is that because, I'm not sure if you've mentioned this, you're an Olympian, aren't you?
Well,
It was going to be twice in the contract. Remember, this is the first mention today. Yes, I was, Radzi. Thank you. Yes, I was. I don't look like it, though. I'm not in that chair, which is off camera, and I'm hoping I'm looking slimmer from this angle.
I don't think so, mate.
Here's a question for you. So, Giants Live is now, you watch it on Channel 5. Previously, you could watch it on other channels as well. So that's part of the Christmas offering. If you guys had your way, there's a brand new country that's been built. We don't know where the people are going to come from. Do you want Giants Live to be at Christmas? We don't know if World's Strongest Man is going to be at Christmas, but do you want Giants Live to be, or would you want it to
I think it works at
I
Christmas.
think it works at Christmas, yeah. Especially when we do the feed for the hardcore live.
We get really. We've got a nice sort of time. We're on Boxing Day and things like that. I think people know it's coming, and people associate Strongman with Christmas TV. And also, I know. Obviously, we can't put the full shows out, but there's a lot of stuff gets out on social media, the live streams and things like that. So if people really want to see it, they can see it. But the hardcore, polished, edited version is on at Christmas. I think people like that.
Because I'm going to put it out there. I'm sure people beg to differ. Please write in the comments. I don't believe it should now be at Christmas. In 2022, there's no other sport on planet Earth where you've got to wait months and months and months to watch
You
it.
don't have to wait months and months. You can pay your what are you charging at the moment for a
£7 to watch it on live
You can
stream.
watch it live.
But even that example.
You do watch it live, and we pay you. Sorry.
But yeah, for me, it's the fact that I love the idea that I can actually find out about a result immediately and watch it on the TV immediately.
You can watch it. We haven't got an app yet, but that's some, the man behind the camera, maybe he'll whip one up at some
Getting
point.
stressed.
But your hardcore looked after. If you want to watch it, you can watch it, full. You can watch everything. You hear Neil Pickup's jokes and Bill Kazmaier on the mic, the full shebang, all, 2.5 hours, 3 hours of action. But, we get, on average, and it's just going up. When everybody else talks about, we get 3% of the audience and we get 12%. We don't talk percents, we'll talk actual figures. We used to get, when Giants Live first went on Channel 5 in, 2009, when I was delivering, it was like maybe 400,000, 350,000. Wasn't great. And it maybe you'd peak up about 500,000-600,000 people would watch it in Britain. Now we are averaging over 1 million, and we peaked at like 1.6, 1.7 million. So that's big. And why is that? It's because big. We are a part of World's Strongest Man's Christmas special, basically. But, it's a big thing in Britain still.
When you look at those figures, like let's say 1 million people watch it, and obviously it's difficult now because people don't watch stuff live, like they watch stuff on catch up and all this sort of thing. But if you look at those figures, from, let's say, a sponsorship point of view, and you brag, we get 1 million, which is brilliant for TV. But then if you look at some of the videos we do that go on YouTube, we've got something like 70 or 80 million on some of them. So the people are watching things, although it's not in the full show format, they're watching the event separately.
350 million on Eddie's deadlift now.
Yeah.
On Facebook.
That's massive.
That's nuts.
So then when you look at 1 million watching on terrestrial, which is great for terrestrial, the internet's opened the whole thing up, hasn't it? I'm not just on about Strongman; it's opened it up for everything. You can watch anything you want.
It's actually it's the great leveler in many ways. It has its negatives and its positives, but what it's proven is that why is darts and snooker so popular? Because
Barry
Hearn's a genius. When he saw football slipping over to Sky, which was a private channel that not that many people were watching, back in the 80s or whatever, the big public channels, the NBCs or whatever, if you like, CBSs, they needed sport, but they, being government funded, didn't have much money. So he got it on there, and suddenly, snooker was like a sort of kind of old man's thing. People didn't go and play snooker much. There was the snooker halls around, but they were kind of seen almost a bit grubby. And I think Strongman's done well out of the Christmas special. But, we really weren't a sport before, there was obviously strength in different areas of strength. Of course there was, since the beginning of time. But Strongman itself in the modern form, that kind of was born out of a TV show, but it was kind of seen as a bit weird. It was linked to the circus and one-off silly demonstrations, as it were. But competitive strongman is, it was obvious it could work. People get dazzled by strength. And that's why clips on the internet work so well. What do you end up watching? You know, but Facebook watched as AI. You know, you either end up watching two blokes in the street punch each other. You know, UFC, they do really well out of it. Or hang on, there's a guy, there's a geezer pulling a plane, or a guy in an arena.
Well, I mean, it's
lifting
all
the
about
heaviest log in the world over his head.
The stuff that works on the social media is extreme things, isn't it? It's always extreme.
Yeah.
Strongman's all extreme.
It's very visual stuff you can instantly get. Jeez, that looks heavy, and you're hooked.
Okay, before I move on to the next topic, here's a little quiz for you. What sport per minute do you think is the cheapest to broadcast?
What sport? What we're talking about the broadcast?
So, for example, if I flicked on, let's just say rugby, rugby will be roughly a 2-hour broadcast, maybe 20-minute pre-show, maybe 10-minute post-show, perhaps 50 minutes in the middle, 80-minute game. So let's say at 2.25 hours. So you go 135 minutes. So whatever the cost is, divide it by 135 minutes.
Yes.
That would be your cost. What sport?
So like because you need tons of cameras for rugby,
Correct.
et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. So that would be maybe, big football match would have 26 cameras, including studio. So they're big costs, and then you divide it by, say, 200 minutes, whatever it might be. So what per minute, what sport do you reckon?
Come on, Radzi, just tell us.
What is the most expensive?
Cheapest.
The cheapest to do. Anything that's static, then anything that's controllably static, such as, you
If
could.
you get this, I'll be amazed.
I could say you could film something like. Well, actually, snooker is very
Boom
static.
is the answer. It is actually snooker.
You're just on that master shot of the table, and then occasionally you'll cut to some guy who's probably following the heads.
You've got two paired cameras, but the point is, its matches last can be sort of 7, 8, 9 hours in terms of the sessions. So you'll have morning, afternoon, evening sessions, and that's the key to Barry Hearn as well. Yeah. So on the BBC, you're filling
banging out hours. Yeah, it's genius,
and it's low cost.
Yeah, makes sense.
But if you guys were in charge, next topic, of World's Strongest Man, how would you change things?
That's a dreadful leading question, because seeing as we work for them, we do work for them, and we are tournament directors of their tournament. Okay. So I think objection sustained.
Okay, I'll change the question.
I don't think we should.
I'm going to take over World's Strongest Man.
Right.
And my sole responsibility, I'm called change president. I've got to make a couple of changes. What would you force me to change if I had to? So, for example,
so we've got your ear as you're the big cheese of World's Strongest Man, and we're advising you.
I say to you guys, I have to make a change. I have to. It's in my contract, and I'm forcing you.
Why don't we flip it on its head?
Hit me.
What do you want to see changed about World's Strongest Man, Radzi?
There'll be a number of things.
Or even better, obviously that research that we were doing before about questions and what people were saying about.
That's what people were asking.
I think the format's good. I mean, the only thing I think is
I changed the head referee.
The more athletes.
They already have.
Magnus Fair.
Got rid of him in 2017.
I think the keeping plenty of athletes there is the key, not to reduce the number of athletes, because obviously they all get narrowed down to a final. But also, if the guys need to go for a few years to be able to get good enough to get to the final. No one just comes in and storms it. Not many of them. So I think it's almost like they've got to get that confidence. But if they don't, let's say if there's only 20 people going, which is the format's been cut a few times with less people, I think it should be more people, because you've got to go to get that confidence for a few years. And if let's say you took 10 people away, right, we're only taking 25 or 20 people. A lot of those people might just go, do you know something? I ain't even going to bother anymore because I can't get there, and they just don't put as much effort in. I mean, obviously there's a lot of bigger shows now. There's a lot of promoters doing different things that are pretty cool shows. But at the end of the day, everyone wants to go to Worlds. That's the fact of it.
It's the Coca-Cola, it's the Kellogg's. And it always will be, no matter what anyone else tries to bring in. It's very hard. To sort of come in, the Olympics is the Olympics. Yes, the World Championships in athletics is special, but if you want to be in the history books, you become.
I think the format's good. What you got to remember is, I probably know what you're going to say, Radzi, because you're going to say, "Oh well, everyone should do the same events and blah blah blah."
Actually,
and all
not.
this
It's the opposite.
Right. Okay. I mean, just for a lot of people say, "Well,
this is the first year everyone is doing the same events."
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, though, let's say it was one big group and everyone did the same thing.
Yeah, I hate that idea.
Well, it would be very uninteresting for television.
100%.
Because you'd have all 30 men doing that. All 30 men doing
Congratulations. We now have basically powerlifting Yeah, and we now got like here
Exactly.
we are for the next 2.5 hours. They're all going to be squatting.
So each TV show, you've got six different events.
That's the problem with power. That's why powerlifting is very hard to make. It's a great sport.
Agreed.
We've both done powerlifting, but it's not. It's very untelevisual.
Okay, so if I give my 3 things, so one would be, it needs to decide, is it a sport or is it a TV show? Because I think it finds itself somewhere between a rock and a hard place. Because if you have the heats, for example, and it's all the same heats, to me, there's no point watching this. I might as well just wait to the final.
Yeah.
And the issue of that, of dissecting it into groups and the same events, means that hypothetically, Colin and I could go through because we're in a poor heat. You don't go through.
Okay. So here's. I think you're going to like this, and here's something that I think.
If hands go behind the
into-
heads, that means Colin's
But there's a
serious.
bigger picture though, because the heat. Let's remember that the heats are made up of how the guys have done in the Giants Live in a
Totally,
year.
yeah.
So let's say, for instance,
or previous World Strongest
So
Mans.
what we'll do is, let's say there's 6 in a group.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Brian Shaw was second. He's seeded first.
he's going to be in the top seed.
Yeah. And Luke
Tom Stolman, funny enough, is a
Tom
top seed.
Stolman first.
It's
Luke
an easy one.
Stolman has won 2 Giants Live this year. Yeah. It's top seed. Evan Singleton won 2 Giants Live, top seed. You know, and then you get to the next seed. There might be a new...
To be fair, you got Lissus.
Yeah.
Is also because there's other contests you take into account as
Exactly,
well.
yeah.
Your top seed and
So,
not
so
the
they
top.
are seeded, so it's not like they're just thrown together.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
then the new guys, unfortunately, you've got to be either a 5th or 6th seed, but that's part of being the new guy.
Yep,
So you're going to have
100%.
a couple of real tough guys. But I do believe that if they're good enough, they'll always shine through.
Yes.
And then they might go, well, actually, I was reserved for the final. Well, next year they might go in a seed 3. So it's a process, and it's no different to UFC. You can't go fight for a title shot. You've got to fight all these guys first. You know, so I think it does work quite well.
Sometimes people just come in and shock you. Plus, you just talking about the athlete thing. You can't be a world championships if you don't have the world. And yes, no insult to many countries, but you really could, partly because we've funneled it down America and British television so much more than anywhere else. But you really could find at least 25 guys who you could make a good argument from those 2 countries are just about top in the world, And it's true. Obviously, when people like Zadrunas and, when a few years ago, that would be ridiculous to say that. But, and Novikov right now, of course, there's others that but you could. So, but that's why you must try and get other continents involved, because if you don't start it, they'll never get involved.
Yeah.
But to get back to your point about formatting, and I think World's Strongest Man is a great format. But I think, like any tournament, you just take a leaf out of other tournaments. When you're watching the World Cup, everyone, watch the first England football game, everyone's way, and then, all right, and you kind of start to sleep through the next couple of rounds, or you'll watch the opening match, even if it isn't your country being represented. That's interesting. Just like in World's Strongest Man, you probably watch the opening show, and you might end up watching the last show of the heats, just before the final begins, to see who's qualified across all 5 of them. And then you watch the final. And it's something we've discussed at World's Strongest Man. And ultimately, we just advise and think. But my thought is, and I don't think it's wrong to say it publicly, is that I think that if you have more at the end, when the best guys have already been, you've chopped away the dead wood, as it were, to use an ugly term, you're now left with the top 10, 12, 14 in the world. Get them doing more than 6 events. In other words, the quarterfinal, semi-final, and final are really when you tune in to a major championships, correct?
You see, so I think I agree sort of in principle, but I don't agree with the World Cup analogy.
But I guess you've got to see that. You've got to see that as, each group of teams as a heat. And that's the idea, is that, anyway. You only have to look at television viewing figures. The semi-finals is only bettered by the final, and that betters the quarterfinals.
Yes.
And the first game is normally massive as well. And therefore, why not take away the stuff that's not quite so interesting and get, people want to see more of, in soccer terms, of Brazil taking on Germany in pressure situations. That's
all these scenarios have been talked about. You've got to be very careful about changing things, because, like, what Colin's saying is right. If you heap more onto the final, But then what about these guys in the heats? Do you know what I mean? You've got to
Totally.
shine a light on them.
Totally.
So it's like, right, they're going to get cut sooner. But it might not be. You need to give them 6 events to be able to actually get the, some guy might lose the first 3, win the next 3, still get to the final.
So how do you bring in semi-final stages?
It's so difficult.
But then without absolutely flogging the life out of these guys. There's a lot of people...
And then you're saying do more events in the final. There's only 6. So if you've done 6 in the heat, 6, that's 12 events over a week. It's like, Jesus, you're going to be killing me.
I think Paul Uhl did a great job when he put on Fortissimus, and I have massive respect for him. But there's only so many Fortissimuses you can have, and there's a lot of the hardcore element, and to be honest, there's a lot of guys often who aren't actually doing the sport who sort of seem to think that 10 events in the final, but after what, 6 events in the heats? Now, okay, hang on, how many more? The injury rate in strongman is ludicrously high. Major injury rates are like 5%. That's like 1 in 20 contests you're going to banjo off a tendon or something. That's pretty serious, isn't it? Therefore, the more events you have, the more likely you are to get knackered. And I'm all for making these guys have successful long careers where they can enjoy highlight moments instead of just having them schlepping away on ridiculous, endless Herculean tasks for our pleasure. No, let's save them so that they don't all fall away and die.
And you've got to also think about the whole range of. You got to think about the guy that is from 25 onwards as well, because he might be your next world's strongest man in 2 years' time.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
we get a constant. I know you do as well, and we get from Giants Live, from myself and Colin personally as well. We've got people constantly saying, "Look, I've done this. Can I get an invite? Can I get an invite? Oh, I've just lifted this, just lifted that." Usually, it's someone who's just done one thing. Now, these guys that are winning shows are good at everything. So, but someone say, "I've just pulled this deadlift. I've just done this log. Can I go to a Giants Live?" And you look at what they've done. You think that's great. That's fantastic. You don't want to knock this guy, but it's like you've got to do everything good. You can't just be a good deadlifter, a good squatter, a good whatever. So you don't want to be negative. So what we've done is we've set up the official strongman. So basically, you can go and upload your. So let's say for a world championships, there'll be 3 lifts you've got to do. It might be a farmer's walk, a deadlift, and a log. Upload it. It's all done online. And then you go to a world championship. So we're on about the route to get to World's Strongest Man here. Yeah. So we do invite people as wild cards. So we need to get someone from this country, someone from this country. We need to invite Brian Shaw because he's, and Lissis because they've won it, Tom Stoltman, people like that. But if you're a guy sat at home that's emailing us saying, right, I think I can do this, you can go, right? Anybody
in the world can make world. Trey Mitchell. Trey Mitchell's the perfect example.
3 years running, right, with official strongman, because we do get asked, well, is this fair? This is how fair it is. So you upload your videos online. Yeah, there's different events every year. You go to the World Championships.
That's contest 1. If you're in the top 30 or top 20, whatever, you get invited.
Then if you get in the top 3 of the Opens, you get to go to a Giants Live. Then if you get in the top 3 of the Giants Live, you get to go to Australia. And
then Trey Mitchell did that. And then, remember, he beat Novikov in the Stones?
Well, a lot of people would say...
And then he made the final one. So his 5th contest. I don't believe he'd done many contests.
No, he hadn't.
I'm not even sure
a lot of people would say, well, that's a lot. So you've got to do that online. You've then got to go to official strongman. Then you've got to go to Giants Live, get top 3 in them. Then you go to Worlds. People say, well, that's a lot. Well, it's not as much as I had to do years ago to get to World's Strongest Man. I did a lot more than that to get in front of certain people. And also, the first year we did it, we had Evan Singleton, went through, did exactly that. Within 3 shows he's at Worlds, and look how good he is. We get Trey, did exactly that. Luke Richardson. So there's 3 people there that I think are the top 10 in the world when they're not injured that have all done it and all come through that system. So it proves it works.
For a long time it troubled me. Were we finding the world's strongest man? And the truth is, if you're a British-based company, how could you be anything but a little bit biased towards, just by its very nature, Yes, it's
And
impossible for us not to be.
xenophobic as well, Colin.
Well,
You're known for it.
well, you know, I don't mind a Frenchman occasionally. I'm not joking. No, sorry. Yeah, some Dutch, dreadful. No, it's just expensive to bring fellas in. I'm, massive fan of having as many internationals at every one of these shows. But there's a certain cost at some point. And if it's a bit like UFC. When UFC go to Brazil, guess what? They got a Brazilian in as many fights as possible. It's not even just financial; it's just interesting for the locals. And as we branch out, hopefully, one day we plan to do big shows all over the world. In the big in arenas. And that's the goal. But we have to. But right now, if you are in Kathmandu or Addis Ababa, or wherever, you can go online and take part. There's no point in lying, because you'll be found out heavily, because you'll get an invite to the official Strongman
This was a
Championships.
criticism we had, because someone said, well, this is going to work because, what if someone lies? If someone's going to lie, right, they're going to get to the show and very quickly they're going to get found out they can't lift this weight.
They've got to pay their own way there. They've got to pay their own way there. I mean, it's just like any
There's some prize money
sport
there if they do well. So, prize money enough to get the flights back and things like that. But what's the point in lying? Because there's only one person going to look bad, and it isn't us,
He's got a proper plum. Yeah.
Two other changes for Worlds. One, the timing systems. So I'm mesmerised in 2022 we still use stopwatches. Because, say in athletics, you would not have 100 metres timed by a bloke with a stopwatch.
Here's a question for you. How many varying situations do you have in even something as simple as Atlas stones? So maybe you have a plinth, maybe you have a big wooden facility, maybe you're running it on grass, maybe it's outdoors, maybe it's indoors, maybe you land it into little round, receptacles, blah, blah, but maybe you do it over a bar. So what? How are you going to, without vast amounts of, in other words, it's changing variations all the time. Athletics, you have 100 meters. You plug in the guy's starting thing, and then at the end, you've got a laser timing system. And as he passes through it, he gets a time. It just couldn't be any easier. And guess what? When you go to every contest, it's identical. It's identical.
So very simply, what you do is it could be lasers, but it'd be, for example, so regardless of the event.
I've tried it, Radzi. I've done it. I have done it. I've done an entire show fully padded. We didn't. Guess what? We kept going back to the bloody stopwatches. That was Ulf Benson. Thank you, Ulf, my old partner. He spent. Well, he didn't spend actually. In the end, we got sponsored it, but I think it was about 30,000 euros was going to be for the next show if we used it. So we accepted
there is some events you could do it on the basic events where it's a start and a stop, but the other events you just wouldn't be able to because there's too many. There's a lot of times where
you need a lot of testing as well,
with the stones, you've got to take your hands off the stones. When the hands release, it's not when it goes in the implement.
But so you would never do it from that. So you do it, so hands go off, and then you would just put a laser perhaps 2 meters away. So they would either touch a button or they would just break.
That's it needs the events would have to change. The big, American Ninja button is going to be needed. Something like that to make it.
Exactly.
That's the way you do it. That is the way you do it. And we have talked about it because it could imagine how interesting and exciting it would be inside big live arenas to have huge timing systems and bang and smoke goes off or whatever. Because it's so visual.
And
so we're not against it. Trust me, we're not against it.
Is in principle, if you have an event where it's separated by 2 seconds, the entire field, in athletics, for example, you have two types of timing: hand timing and then official timing. And hand timing, they will say can be as out as 0.4 of a second.
So I think 0.25 is what they work to, isn't it?
So apologies. So what I mean is, so for example,
but yes, it's still a quarter of a second. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot. But here's an interesting fact for you: when someone hand times, they almost always hand time to the same rhythm. So if you do 100 meters and you got 10.25 for the guy, and I got 10.5, when you do 11 seconds, chances are I'll do 11.25. We have the same rhythm. That's an interesting fact.
Agreed. That's true. Yeah.
And what we do is we have multiple men hand timing. And if it's ever even close, we go back to the we do have
Frame by
photographic evidence. It's 25 frames a second. Yeah, so we can break it up into whatever.
It happens a lot.
1/25th of a second.
So if there's ever a question, let's say we both stop and one's 11.5 and one's 11. We go and we actually break it down frame by frame.
And count
and you
it
see
up.
exactly who finishes. I mean, the thing is, also with start, so you start on the whistle, but not everyone sets off at the same time.
Exactly.
That's the problem. You know what I mean? Like some people. I mean, when I was competing, I'd look at the guy, and as soon as he did that, I'd set off because it's too late. Do you know what I mean? I learned that trick off Pudzianowski.
You need a hand time whistle for Dazzler.
As soon as someone's just about to blow the whistle, it's too late. They're going to blow it. So that's when you take your grip and go.
The Fox 40.
But then other people are looking at the floor, which I think was stupid. And then the way to
Pudzianowski
hit
was terrible for that.
It was great. Pudzianowski set off like half a second before everybody and everything.
I'd always have to go. Give him a couple of dummies just to keep him on his toes as the ref. Yeah, it was a nightmare. Anyway, yeah. But listen, please do not read into what we've just said as we are against electronic perfect timing. That would be, if that's the takeaway from this, that would be a disaster.
I think it's putting the work in and getting it right. I think it needs a lot of thought going into it.
Yes.
It's a lot of expense, a lot of testing. It has been tried. It didn't work so well. It could work. It absolutely could work and should work. But it is mildly cost prohibitive. I'd rather right now pump money into doing more events, giving more opportunities to guys.
I think it would be a mix.
And if we are on occasion going to be slightly out, I'm sorry, and it's also quick.
I think the point you're getting to is like it's going to be a mix, because if you look at all the different events, it has to be a mix between pressure pads, button pressing, and laser beams. It couldn't just be one thing.
Sounds like a kinky session.
Well, that's what it would be, wouldn't it? It'd have to be like that. It'd have to be all different ways of doing it.
Yeah. But even, for example, yes, basically, final thing for Worlds for me, crowds. Because when you talk about a World Championships of anything, you expect it to be the biggest, the most overwhelming, the best, the most attended.
Crowds are coming this year.
Crowds are coming.
We're going to come.
Do you know how many?
Not too sure.
Too many to talk about.
It's welcome to everybody, and there's a stand you can buy a ticket, or you can go and watch it.
VIP, even better. It's a VIP tent this year is what they've decided on because of the location. So I believe there are tickets left. So if you want to go along,
and this is the one I want to watch. It's actually the one even though there aren't traditionally that many.
We'll try and get you like 10% off. Yeah.
Thank you, mate. Use Bryce hashtag in the voucher code.
No, there is no promo codes.
It's a new thing for them that they're doing. I mean, the thing is with World's Strongest Man, because it moves around all the time, and it's usually in Giants Lives are in an arena. It's easy. It's full of seats. Buy a ticket, sit down.
Worlds is somewhere exotic.
Yeah, so it's somewhere like on a beach or something like that. And they did a couple of years ago. They did it, and it was on a beach in Florida. We got a lot of people there.
That's great.
So I think they're realising now that that's the way to go. But not everywhere is that easy to get tiered seating and everything like that,
Yeah.
And then let's remember the year before that there was a hurricane. So it was, there was meant to be crowds. Everything was set up. It all blew away.
That was
genuinely.
on the beach, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was on a beach. So that was actually set up for a lot of people to be there. The weather was so bad.
It will come in, but hey, from the beginning of this podcast, if the great AEG who put on, that's all they do is selling tickets and make. If they found it difficult with Strongman and felt uncomfortable with the risk levels, it's harder for someone from a television company, albeit they're a massive conglomerate of many things, Endeavour, but and they do have plenty of expertise. I think, but someone's at some point is going to have to go rubber stamp a load of risk money.
We're probably more bullish. We're probably more bullish because
it's easy to be, because
we've done it, and we've filled these arenas. We're now known for having a good 3-hour sit down, bums on seats. So it's easy for us to take the risk.
They're expensive, though. They're expensive.
Yeah.
I think we costed it up. It's dollars. It's more, but it's about a minimum of £250,000 to put a show on, a Giants live show
to do it properly.
Is that right?
So that's really good to dollars. Was that like 320, 350?
But the thing is, you watch it on TV and people wouldn't necessarily know that, because that's a massive a massive risk ultimately, personally, you guys are taking. And with that in mind, final question, because I'm aware this is going along. If we're sat here in 15 years' time, where will Giants Live be? What would the dream look like?
For me, it's just keeping it growing. But it's difficult because we ended up with a lot of shows in the north because it's near where I live and the equipment's here. I think we need to do more shows abroad. Las Vegas, places like that. I've been looking around. We'll maybe go over to Ireland. We're doing a show in Scotland now.
Yeah.
We're doing a show in Wales now. So maybe put one in Ireland, and just branching out really and trying to keep it. But what we want to do is, as we move, let's say abroad, is keep it exactly the same out the box. Where it's not like, well, we're abroad, so we don't have this commentator or we don't have this kit. No, we actually take everything. Okay. So if you go into a Giants Live, you're going to get the full treatment. There won't be another Giants Live where it's in a car park or it's in, that's all gone now. This is now, if you see one, it'll be as it is, like in Royal Albert Hall or Leeds Arena or Sheffield.
It's so special. But I think moving on from that, I'd like to see maybe a challenge tour below it. And that's how you keep the absolute quality and go around. Who knows? Maybe one day there could be one event per month in different countries in the world, and then you have a challenge tour, which is more of a national or new area location.
The difficulty is, the honest truth of it is,
if anyone wants to run it, wants a job, and wants to put risk money in, call us.
The difficulty is
Darren needs the help
because it's been grown. Slow grown, if you like.
Yeah, organically grown, yeah.
All the crew, friends, family, things like that, they're a massive part of it.
Massively.
So we put on shows, everyone comes, they all know what they're doing because they've been there from the start. And it's like second nature to them. There's not many mistakes made. Everyone who comes to watch the shows makes a comment, this crew's brilliant. Now, if I go put one on in Vegas, literally I want to take all the crew. Which is what we do. We take the crew out to America when we do the official Strongman. It's so important. It's not like, if you think about, right, so we'll hire a crew. We can't really. Not like this. Because
Lynn's crew's very good as well.
Lynn's crew's brilliant. But again,
does a great job.
They've grown. Lynn's crew's the official Strongman crew. But they've grown with it. So you can't just go, right, we'll hire some guys from this, from... like a crew, another working crew to do something else. They've grown into it.
And those are, I guess, the real crunch there is how important those roles are. Daz and I have always been sucking up the credit for all of this, but actually, there's an iceberg of highly talented, often multi-rolled people. From Scott, who is 8 times British shot put champion, come. Senior teacher come our floor manager, along with, Lee, who's a senior policeman who also is now a tremendous floor manager, So guys like that are, it's kind of, there's kind of an amazing band of people.
It's not that easy. It's not that easy to mobilise that and say, right, we're going to put it in Vegas, we're going to put it in there, we're going to put it in there, So that's the key. How are we going to mobilise this and make it the same in another country? And
I'll tell you what. So working behind the scenes as well, the big thing for me is, so that knowledge, for example, with Scott is, so you come first in, so you're competing in one event, you go last in it, you come first, so you're up next straight away. There's a welfare issue of, has that guy had enough warm-up time? And those that are split-second decisions that the guys like Scott make all the time, estimating how long it takes them to get from one room to the other.
Scott often feeds us information like, guys, whatever, Dimitar's on the ground. I'm refusing to go out again.
Is he Welsh?
He's Welshman. Yeah, thank you. But guys are like, Scott is a power athlete. He knows the guys. He knows them well. He can, it's not an easy show to put on. It's not a show. It's an extremely technical and extreme sport event wrapped into an entertainment package.
But all these crew members have generically learned how to do it and have learned it over 10 or 15 years and can't be replaced by just picking up the phone. I want a guy doing this.
Yeah.
Because that guy doesn't exist. It's not like saying I want an electrician. I want someone that can deal with a strongman kit, deal with athletes. You know what I mean? They're there and they've learnt it through years and years. So I think the only way to do it literally is flying the crew around the world, which we do. But it's difficult, And
here's my last sort of comment and thought, is that basically anything we say or do around World's Strongest Man is we are the World's Strongest Man qualifying tour. And yes, we are, tournament directors at World's Strongest Man, but, I think more and more it appears like, we are going to be doing more and more with them and building it more and more. And I think the world's got a lot to look forward to. Obviously, anything we've said here is of our opinion, because we aren't, they are a separate entity. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe one day it'll all become one massive conglomerate, and it'll be a UFC. That's where I think if we were really dreaming big, but at the moment, I think Daz and I are doing a decent enough job, and we enjoy it together. And all the guys, all the team. It's a good...
And also, the guys at World's Strongest Man, they're very aware that they want to keep moving forward. They're not just sat there going, yeah, we put it on every year. There's a lot behind the scenes that's going into it, saying, right, what if we change this? What if we do that? And like I say, you've got to be careful changing things. You've got to tweak things a little bit and see if it works. And they are doing that. So there is crowds this year. They're always looking at new things, new events. They want athletes to be versatile. They want people from all over the world. But then you've still got to get the best guys. So it's so difficult. It's not just a lot of people have got an opinion, especially on the internet, of should be done like this, should be done like that. But if you do these things, there's always a consequence. So
too much of a good thing is never a good thing, and a bit like, who's the most recent athlete to be brought in? Manuel Angulo. Now, here's a question for you. Looking back over time, wouldn't you say some of the charm of World's Strongest Man is some of the unique characters who've turned up? And this guy will be the first man ever from South America to step up and compete at World's Strongest Man. It's quite something, isn't it? And he's about 6'5".
Does Mexico count is that Central America?
That's Central America. Well, it's that, and it's also it's above Panama.
Probably
it's
one of the scariest men you've ever seen.
So
have you seen the guy?
Yeah.
But it's also part of the North American continent. So it's Canada, USA, Mexico, and then it opens out South America. So he is the first ever South American. He's from Chile, and do you know what? He's pulled his best deadlift 5 at 365 recently in training, and he did 3 at 155 in the log the other day. Now deadlifting and log lifting are events that'll be a part of this year's things. His log lifting is his worst element, but he's a tough guy, man. He came to Strongman in his late 30s. He's like 42, 43, or maybe, mid 30s, like a Felix. He's tough as hell. And he's got a hell of a face. I think he's going to be revolutionary for South American Strongman. And we could fill it with yet another Brit or American who maybe is on sheer numbers more worthy. But he won't have the same effect this guy will do. And I think he's going to bring a smile to people's faces.
Well, I think you can probably tell we could chat all day about this topic. But if you've got any questions you'd like to ask these guys, put them in the comments below. Any ideas you want for World's Strongest Man, any ideas for Giants Live as well. We'd love to hear from you. We genuinely do read all the comments, the good, the bad, and even if you're commenting on some of our Adonis-like physiques, we even read those ones as well. But as for us, we're going to call it quits there. Thank you very much for your time once again, and we're going to do this again. So let's see you again very soon.